All right, so this next question is about generating a reversal signal, right? In other words, a signal in the opposite direction. If price, moves X ticks, in the wrong direction, essentially. All right, so here we go, right? So if price, right, crosses above a moving average, right? So, so if price crosses above, then generate a short signal there, right? So in other words, a counter trend signal, right? So that's going to be our basically our simple main signal to work with, right? So this is just going to be kind of like a sample signal here, just looking for crossovers. The real question is, so then if price keeps rising, right? So after price crosses above, if price keeps rising further, then then we want to turn this short signal into a long signal. Well, actually, we're not turning it. We're generating a long signal after that short signal occurred. All right. So in order to do this, we're going to need to use a support indicator. And let me pull this up. So I'm going to go to the documentation page here. All right. So if you go to support documentation, it'll kind of take you to this kind of like launchpad page here. And we're going to use this indicator. And so the BloodHound setup bar prices indicator helps you track the bar prices that were generated on a signal bar, right? So as this kind of image illustrates, right, we have a signal here on this bar, and we can see that this indicator is tracking the high price and the low price from that signal bar. And then when the next signal comes in, again, it starts tracking the bar prices from that signal, right? So on and so forth, right? So it's kind of like a swing indicator, right? Except that instead of tracking the swing points, right, the swing highs and low points, it's tracking BloodHound signal prices. So we're going to use this to help us here, right? So that indicator is how we can determine, did price move X ticks further, right, from the original signal, from the main signal. Okay. Now, one of the things to be very aware of is make sure you read this warning here very carefully. Otherwise, you're going to lock up your NinjaTrader and cause problems, right? So this indicator has the potential to create an infinite loop, which will lock up NinjaTrader and crash it. So yeah, read through this very carefully here before you start using it. All right. And so one of the warnings is that the original signal here needs to be in a separate file, right? So what I'm going to do is, let's see, let's save this, and I'm going to clear this out and start from scratch here, and then create a separate workshop file here. So I only do this when we're using that setup bar prices indicator. So like here you can see on the list here. So here's another file. Actually, yeah, two files here. So right, we have two workshop files, and so the second one was for use within that BloodHound setup bar prices indicator. All right. So I'm going to do the same thing here. All right. I'm using a bunch of abbreviations here. So this is going to be a counter trend signal when price crosses over the EMA 50. All right. So since I already have the EMA 50 on my chart from the previous question, I'll just use that indicator again. Right. And so again, when price crosses above, we're going to generate a short signal. Right. So that would be a counter trend signal there. Right. So there we go. So I have a separate file that we're making. Let's save that. All right. So let's grab a crossover solver. Let me also just switch back to a normal chart. So let me go back to a standard 1-minute chart. There we go. So I think this is gonna generate kind of better signals to work with. So where instead of looking at the closing price crossing the moving average, I'm going to check to see if the entire bar crosses above. Right? So in other words, I need, come on, there we go. So I need the low price of the bar to cross above, and that'll tell me that the entire bar crossed above, right? Or I can be looking at the high price and see, did the high price cross below? And then I know the entire bar crossed below, right? So, all right, so with that, all right, for the crossover solver, input A is going to be the bar prices, and instead of the closing price, right, let's see, so let's see, so for a short, remember, yeah, so if the bars cross above, we want a short signal. So let's put the low price in there and the high price in for the longs, right? Input B, that's going to be our EMA 50 period. What we're looking for are not crosses in direction. So let's set that down to 0. We want crosses against direction, like so. There we go. Right, there you have it. Right, the bars cross down, and we're getting a long cross down, and when the bars cross up, we're getting a short crossover. So there we have it. There's our, let's see, call it our counter trend crossover. All right, so we have the a counter trend whole bar crossover of the EMA 50. All right, that should be a good enough name for that. So great. So let's save that. And now we can open up our workshop file here, our main workshop file. All right. So first, let's continue, or let's finish setting up the chart here. Actually, let's create a new logic template. There we go. All right, so I'm going to set up the BloodHound setup bar prices indicator on the chart so we can have a visual aid. All right, so for the setup bar prices indicator, right, first thing we need to do is load in our BloodHound file that generates the signals, right? And this is why we create a separate file to help prevent those possible infinite loops. Right, so we're going to load in our counter trend price crossover, BloodHound file, and then select the logic template. We just left it called new logic there. Yeah, you know what? Let's go and fix that real quick. All right. So I'm going to adjust the logic template name here. There we go. All right, we'll save that. And then open up our main workshop file again. Oh, wait, wrong one. There we go. All right, so let's go back into the setup bar prices indicator there. Yeah, you can see it's, it's holding on to a cached copy. So we're going to delete that, remove that file name, and then add it back in. There we go. So now it has the new updated logic template name. So that's a little better. All right, there we have it. So, we can see, right, the indicator, right, is plotting the high and low, right? Now it, it doesn't really say, X ticks from where. So I'm going to assume it's just going to be the closing price of the bar. All right. So in the setup bar prices indicator, right, you can adjust the plots here. Come on. There we go. You can adjust the plots, to draw which plot, to see what plots you want on the chart. So let's turn off the high and low plots, and let's just show the close. And what's a good color? I guess I'll use a purple. Yeah. There. All right. So now that we have our signal generated, and so this, the next step is, well, actually, before we get ahead of ourselves, we actually, no, sorry. Next step is just to calculate, calculate this to check to see if price has moved X ticks further. So I think for this, all we need is just a comparison solver. Can do that. Let's see here. So this would be a long signal here. Yeah, so let's use that. So this is a long signal. And we can see that price kept on going down. All right, so price went against this long signal. So this is a good area to work with. All right, so input A is we're going to be comparing, one of these bar prices here. And again, there's nothing specific. So I'm just going to use the closing price of the bar. So if the closing price of the bar, moves X ticks, further, then we'll generate that signal in the opposite direction. So input A is going to be the closing price of the bar, and input B, right, that's going to be our setup bar prices indicator, right? So that's how we can compare the closing price of future bars going forward back to the closing price of the bar that generated the first trade signal. right, or the original trade signal. Let's see. All right, so input B is going to be that setup bar prices indicator. So let's go into the Shark Indicators folder, go into Tools, and there it is, BloodHound Setup Bar Prices Indicator. And we're going to set this up exactly the same way we set up the indicator that's running on the chart there. Right? So we need to load in that separate BloodHound file here. Right? So this visually kind of gives us an example of why you don't use the same file, right? This file is separate from the file name that's actually loading this file into it, right? So you can see if I was loading this workshop file into this indicator inside of this workshop file, right? Hopefully that conveys, or illustrates how an infinite loop can be created. Right, so that's why the BloodHound file used inside the setup bar prices indicator should always be a separate standalone file, always. Okay. All right, and select the logic template. And so these BloodHound files for the setup bar prices indicator, they're so far I've only seen examples where you're only going to have one logic template in this file. I guess in theory I could see how maybe there might be two logic templates in the same file, but I haven't come across any real life examples of when that would ever be. All right, so just kind of keep that in mind, that when you have, so you should be creating a separate file for every different type of trade signal, right? So don't be cramming a bunch of different trade signals into the same file and then having a bunch of different logic templates. So every trade signal that you want to track with this indicator should have its own separate file. So that way you're not cramming a bunch into the same one, because that, again, could accidentally lead to an infinite loop. All right. And let's see. All right. So we have the BloodHound file and the logic template set up. So next, we're going to select the closing price. All right. So this comparison solver, we're comparing, right, the current closing price of the bar to the plot from the setup bar prices, right? So in other words, this purple plot line. And let's check for, let's say, 20 ticks. All right, I'll just pick a number there. Let's see, 20 ticks on the ES ought to be pretty easy to do. Yeah. All right, so in the comparison rules here, let's see. So this was a long signal, and now we want to generate a short signal. All right, so if the close is less than, and let's include the equals. So if the close is less than or equals, right, to the BloodHound setup bar prices, right, the close plot minus, let's see, points or ticks. Yeah, I'll just put in 5 points, which is 20 ticks. Right? So if the current closing price, right, so remember this first input here is input A. All right, and the second one is input B. Yeah. So there you go. If the close is less than or equal to the setup bar prices closing plot minus 5 points, will generate a short. And so the opposite would be true for a long. So if the close, right, goes above or is equal to plus 5 points, then we'll generate a long output. And wow, so it looks like 5 points is pretty easy to achieve. All right, let's increase this here. Let's go maybe 15 points. There you go. That's a little bit more extreme. Wow, even today, 15 points. Let's keep going. All right. So based on where I'm working right here, let's go 30 points. 30 points. There we go. All right, let's give this solver a name here. All right, let's see if we have any other signals. Here's a bunch more. Now, so most likely, right, this is identifying every time the close is 30 points lower, right, than the original setup signal here. And so probably, for good measure, we should probably put the original signal on the chart. So let's add another BloodHound to this chart temporarily. And so there's our original signal here. There we go. And yeah, you know what? I'll make these signals a lot more opaque so they'll stand out a little better. So there we go. Yeah. And I'll make them a little brighter. All right. All right, so there we can see in bright green, right, there's the original signal, right? It went long. So remember, it was a counter trend signal. Whenever price crosses down, right, underneath the moving average, we're getting a counter trend signal. And then if price keeps moving down, right, then we'll generate that reversal signal. So obviously, you'd probably want to clean this up. So yeah, I mean, the way this question was asked is an actual reversal signal was what was wanted, right? So we don't want, you know, this output, right? So this is just saying, okay, all these bars are below, you know, they're 30 points below, right, the close of the original signal, right? So we want to turn these into a more discrete trade signals. So let's open up BloodHound there, and we can add a signal blocker. There we go, signal blocker, like so. And let's just block for 100 bars. I'm guessing for this, 100 bars is probably good enough, you know, for this example. All right, so keep in mind, you might need to block for more. So, and let's see, so we need to figure out the resets here, all right, because we probably do need to reset the signal blocker. Actually, no, input opposite signal. Yeah, input opposite signal, that should be fine. Now, we'll just leave it like that. So we're not using the reset signal connection. So you can turn that off if you want. Now, technically, there's a slight performance improvement, but, you know, not realistically. So, and let's see. what we have. So there we go. You know what? Yeah, after looking at this, we actually might need. Oh, opened up the wrong one. There we go. We might actually need to reset that signal blocker. Yeah, we do. All right. So, yeah, so here's what's going on, right? So we have this downtrend, and we have that reversal signal here, right? And then a bunch of reversal signals. And then price, right, kind of consolidates around a little bit. We have another, right, original signal, and then we have that reversal signal right here. And so with the signal blocker, right, I have the actively blocking turned on. All right, so I usually like to put in 0.1 or 0.2. And what that does is, right, you see this little output here? This tells me when the signal blocker is actively blocking, right? And so I can see it's actively blocking when this next reversal short signal came in. So it was still blocking because we didn't actually get a reversal signal long anywhere here. So for this signal blocker, relying on this input opposite signal actually doesn't work. Not in this case. So that usually does work the majority of time, but not always. So we're actually going to use the reset signal. Let's see, is it reset signal? Actually, yeah, reset signal, but also I think reset opposite signal will be good as well. All right. So what I need, right, to reset the signal blocker, right, to reset the signal blocker, I need these original signals, right? So obviously whenever a new original signal comes in, then we could have the possibility of another, right, another one of these reversal signals after the original signal. So just, yeah, like as we did right here. Right, we should see, oops, wrong one. Right, we should see a reversal signal here. Right, so what I will need is I need the logic that created the original signal, right? And so I'm going to use those original signals as the logic to reset our signal blocker, right? And we're going to connect that into the reset point for the signal blocker. And so because we're working with a simple example here, I can open up, right, this other BloodHound here, and I can just simply copy this node. But realistically, you would need to copy the entire system that's generating the original signals, and then you would need to paste that in here, right? So you would paste the original trade signal system in here and then connect it into that reset right there. Okay. So now when we look at this, there we go. All right, so the original signal comes in, Then we have that reversal signal, right? And we can see down here, we have, yeah, maybe I should put this up, keep this up top there. Probably a little less confusing. So we can see the signal blocker is actively blocking short signals, right? That's how we got rid of all those extra short signals there. And then a new original signal comes in, right, to go along, like so. And that turns off the signal blocker. So we could possibly get another, right, so the original signal is going long, so we could possibly have gotten a reversal short signal afterwards, but of course, yeah, price didn't do that. Here we go. So again, we got an original long signal, and then we get that reversal signal here. The signal blocker is on, and then price crosses up, so now we have an original long signal, I'm sorry, an original short signal, and we could get a possible reversal long signal if price had kept moving. But yeah, obviously it didn't move quite far enough, didn't quite reach our 30 point requirement there. But you know, the point is, yeah, is that our signal blocker got turned off when the next original signal came in. All right, so we're using the original signals to turn off the signal blocker there. Right. And let's see, we need to give this a name here. All right, so there we go. So we're getting a reversal signal after 30 points, right, in the opposite direction. And so, yeah, again, you know, the distance, you know, can be adjusted within the comparison solver, right? So this comparison solver's what's checking for that 30 points. So if we open up the comparison settings here, right, you can change from points to ticks or ATRs. And all right, that should cover it. Yeah. So some side notes here, you know, to kind of complete the picture here, right? So these were two, you know, separate signals designed to go into Blackbird. All right. So, so that means in Blackbird, you're gonna have to run two separate BloodHound signals in Blackbird, right? So you're gonna have this original, you're gonna have the original signal, right, from this separate file here, right? So this is your original signal that will initiate the first trade within Blackbird. So you need to load this into Blackbird, and we might cover this tomorrow, I'm not sure, so yeah, you have to load this into the trade signals into Blackbird, and then you also have to load in this other BloodHound file as a trade signal into Blackbird as well to get those reversal signals. And again, do not combine these two files together. All right, if you do, you do it at your own risk of running that infinite loop and having everything crash. So yeah, so Freddie's just saying he'd like to have both signals on the chart. Yeah, I mean, you know, that's up to you. But yeah, as everybody saw, I just simply added two BloodHounds to the chart there. Yeah. And of course, remember that since you're using this in Blackbird, you know, Blackbird's going to add one of these BloodHounds to the chart. And so if you want to see both signals, then you will need to add a BloodHound, separate from the one that's running inside of Blackbird. All right, that looks like that does it as far as the questions from Freddie.